Welcome to another episode of the Leverage Podcast. I am your host, John Davidson, and today I'm excited to welcome a guest who is doing amazing things in the real estate industry. He's building his company on the foundational principles of integrity, working hard, and treating others the right way. Please welcome me in joining Austin Kutz, founder of Compass and Key Group. Austin, welcome to the show.
Hey, John, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm glad you're joining me today. We had a great conversation yesterday, and it was just really amazing hearing about your whole background and really the focus that you have on your team and your clients. And so, first of all, please share with our audience, what is Compass and Key Group?
Yeah, thanks. First off, thanks for having me on. But Compass and Key Group is a real estate team brokered by Real Broker located in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. And yeah, we specialize with buyers and sellers, different forms of transactions, relocation, pretty much if it's a buy or sell, that sort of thing. And started it a few years ago, and that's where we're at today.
Fantastic. And so, for those who don't live in Kentucky, we've
Hmm.
probably heard of Lexington.
Yeah.
We've heard of Louisville. I actually broke my ankle at the Louisville skate park one time, so
Oh
that's my
man.
specific Kentucky experience. But tell us, what makes Elizabethtown a great place to buy a home?
So that's a great question. E-Town or Elizabethtown, but we all call it E-Town. It's about 40 minutes south of Louisville. So it's right along the I-65 corridor, and it's I would say, medium-sized city with 30 something thousand residents inside of city limits and more in the surrounding Hardin County area. But it for me at least, it's kind of like this perfect medium because you can be in a major city like Louisville in less than an hour. You can be in Nashville in an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on how fast you drive. But there's a lot of national parks and other, I would say, outdoorsy things that are still like really close. So you have that blend of small town living per se, not one horse town living, but it's smaller. So it's safe, it's quiet. I would say things are really accessible for most people. It's a really, really strong community for kids and families and for small businesses as well, because it is growing. It's been growing very quickly for the last few years. And it's kind of just this hidden gem in central Kentucky, really. So, yeah, for all those reasons, I really kind of love it here.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've lived all over the country, and I've lived next to so many major cities, but I've always been a
Hmm.
suburb guy. And
Okay.
so I can relate, having the major city within driving distance, but there's
Hmm.
something about just it being a bit outside where it's a little
Hmm.
quieter, and especially if you have a family,
Yeah.
typically you're going to see better schools, right?
Yeah.
And life is just maybe slightly slower than the big
Yeah.
city wherever you are around the country. Well, I
Hmm.
want to hear all about your career path. You served in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for your service.
Appreciate it.
And please take us through that journey going from being overseas and serving with your fellow soldiers there to where you found yourself founding a real estate company.
Yeah. So, I joined the Marine Corps when I was a teenager. Um, that was my calling or at least since I can remember. Um, that's all I ever wanted to do was be in the military.
Hmm.
And when I got to the Marine Corps and made it through training, and I finally got to my unit, um, I I didn't care about career advancement. I didn't care about the education. I just wanted to deploy.
Hmm.
And so I got my wish a week after I checked in. I deployed when I was 19, and it was awesome. It was everything. I mean, it wasn't everything that I hoped it was going to be, but it was exactly the opportunity I wanted. And came back, deployed again, and somewhere around that time, I got married. Pretty still, which is still young. I was in my early 20s, and then I chose not to reenlist and leave the Marine Corps and kind of see if I could start like a real family outside of the military without having to deploy. And then, as it turns out, when you get married super young with no counseling or, support system, you tend to get divorced pretty young too.
Yep.
And so I had gotten divorced, and it wasn't the greatest time. I don't have any friends that have gotten divorced, and they were like, "Yeah, it was all right." But um,
Right.
so I gotten out and I did some contracting. Outside of that, and as my divorce was coming to an end, I was like, I'm just gonna go back. And so that was my thing. I was gonna go back to active duty and try a different career field and do some fun stuff. And I was staying at my friend's house in Camp Lejeune in North Carolina, just going to school online, kind of licking my wounds from a divorce. And my older sister called me and she's like, you really got to start doing something. And I was like, I'm in college. I'm going to school and I'm going back on active duty. Like, what do you mean? And she's like, yeah, but like, you need to do something more, like, while you're waiting to go back, because you don't really have like a real job and you can't like sit around in self pity forever. And I was like, geez, dude, like
Tell me how you really
harsh.
feel. Yeah.
Yeah, harsh. So and she's like, I think you should come move to Elizabethtown because that's where she lived. And I think you should come move to Elizabethtown and I think you should try real estate because I think you'd be really good at it. And I was like, I don't know anything about real estate. And she's
And
like,
from what you told me yesterday, you're not this big sales guy, right? Like you don't
yeah,
put yourself
yeah,
as like, yeah, I could sell, icing
yeah.
Eskimo sort of a thing. You're,
No,
yeah.
no, that's not my style. Can I? Yes. Do I enjoy it? Is that just like a natural thing for me? No. Um, and so I was looking at real estate careers as a whole, and I'm like, so I'm going to have to put my face on stuff. I was like, no, I don't think I'd be good at this. And she's like, just give it a try. No one knows what they're doing when they first start. I think it'd be really good for you. So I got my license, and I moved here with nothing. So really, like most divorces, it kind of leaves you with nothing. So
Right.
I had sold my truck. I got a beater Volkswagen Jetta that wobbled when we went past 65 miles an hour.
Nice.
Um, yeah, and so me and my dog and my bag of clothes moved into an empty apartment here in Elizabethtown in 2020, in April of 2022. And I used the last couple of bucks that I had to pay for my rent, pay for my license testing, and my MLS membership.
Mm.
And that's what it was. And with little to no training, I was showing houses like the next week. The week after my license came in the mail.
Wow. Yeah.
And we actually went like the first or second showing that I had, I accidentally sold the house. And I say that accidentally because I had
Accidentally.
no idea what I was doing. And I remember like driving home and calling my broker, and I was like, oh my God, they want to buy it. What do I do? And she's like, you don't know how to do the contracts, do you? And I was like, nope. And she's like, okay, log into Authentisign, which was at the time what we used for signatures. And I was like,
Mhm.
cool, what's that? And so it was this like crash course on realtoring
Mm.
that I just didn't expect to go through. And it kind of, and we were still riding COVID coattails at the time, so I feel like that was just a really fortuitous season for me to start. It wasn't as crazy as it was in 21, but mid 22, basically everything until September, October was still pretty madhouse.
Yeah.
And and then the interest rates hit 8% that fall, and
Hmm.
um, everyone kind of panicked, and I started this thing, and I was like, I got to keep going because I'm still in school. I still have bills to pay. And my timetable for going back on active duty isn't really set in stone yet. So I still got to keep on chugging away.
Yeah.
And then over that winter, I kind of went through my paperwork to go back on active duty, but I failed my flight physical.
Mm.
And so I needed another surgery on my leg. It was an old injury. And went and got the surgery. Was renovating this old house that I bought because I was like, let me just renovate this house, make some money. Um, so I'm in school doing realtor work and I'm gutting a house by myself. And the gal I was dating at the time was, kind of stopped by while I was putting in the new front door. I say putting in a front door very loosely. I had no idea what I was doing. I was on YouTube with one hand, and the other hand, I'm like steadying this front door, and I finally
You're
got it like in there.
you're pretty
And
comfortable trying new things, is what
yeah, we'll
I'm
figure it
taking
out.
from you. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. And she stopped by unannounced, and I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And she's like, "Hey, you're gonna be a dad." It wasn't quite like that, but pretty much.
Surprise. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, I'm gonna have to finish this house so much faster than I thought. Um, and so I just did it. I finished the house by fall, or at least the main level, and she moved in, and we had our daughter Magnolia. And somewhere in between that, I made a very hard decision, and I was like, I'm just gonna completely like let the military go.
Mm.
I'm not going to go back. I'm not going to try to go back. I have a daughter now. And her mom is very successful attorney here in Elizabethtown. So I'm not going to make her move. It slows down.
Right.
So I was like, I need to stay. And it was just kind of this message from God that it's time this is the place. And so I let that go. And I was like, I'm just going to go into real estate with both hands. And that's what I did. Over that winter, I started laying the foundations and the groundwork for starting the company. And then I went off on my own and started the team in April of
Hmm.
23. Um, and no, April of 24, sorry. And, that took us to where we are today. I just kept on trying new things and really not taking no for an answer.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at.
Wonderful. Thank you for walking us through that life journey there. And
Mhm.
so you kind of grew this team around April 2024, you're saying. What is
Mhm.
the size of the team currently?
We currently have three producing agents and two agents in train.
Fantastic. And
Hmm.
so with such a positive experience in the Marine
Hmm.
Corps, it sounds like you learned a lot of things that I'm sure
Hmm.
are applicable to other aspects of life. Share a little bit
Hmm.
about what you learned in the Marine Corps that you have now applied to starting a new company and building a team.
Sure. So I would two really important things. One, this is the way we've always done it is not an acceptable answer. Um, I learned that in the Marine Corps, and I was able to see it in the industry here. And after starting from just like a basic realtor at a traditional brokerage, um, I was always trying to learn more and understand the why behind things. And I got a lot of the same answers that would say, "This is just the way it always has been. We've just always done it this way."
Yeah,
And in the Marine Corps, that's a shut up and keep moving. You know what I mean? That's that there's no way around that now. Out here in the civilian world, especially in the entrepreneurial space, that's a challenge. That means
hmm,
you need to find out a way around this because what that tells me is that it's an antiquated process.
right.
So I learned that in the Marine Corps. But what I also learned is sometimes the simplest answer is the right one. Um, and just because it is an older process doesn't mean it's wrong. You know what I mean? But you
That's a good
just
point too.
you
Yeah.
have to be able to justify it. So I thought about those two things last night, and I was like, they're diametrically opposed concepts and frame and mindsets, but it's really important to keep them both in your space, because if you're constantly challenging stuff and constantly trying to fix something even though it's not broken, you're not going to make any progress anywhere. Sometimes you have to find a direction and commit to it and ride that pony till the ride's over.
Great point.
And sometimes you have to recognize a bad strategy or a bad method and adapt. And you, as like the founder, the boss, the CEO, whoever's in charge, that's what the leadership is for. You have to make that judgment call and really analyze that problem and realize, okay, is this something that we need to let simmer for a little bit, or do we need to uproot this issue now and do an overhaul? So, yeah, that's something that I took away from the military. Absolutely.
That's a great point. Two things can be true at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And it
Hmm.
sounds like it's an observation and awareness of, hey, let's keep what's working, and
Yeah.
what's not working,
Hmm.
let's find a better solution. Let's not keep
Yeah.
doing it just because we've been doing it this way.
Yeah.
That's a really great insight. So, going further on building the team, you've built a great culture there, and we talked a little bit about what you look for in
Yeah.
employees. And so, walk me through, as you're hiring and as you're mentoring members of your team, what are some of your main focuses there to really build a successful organization and a great atmosphere?
We talked about this yesterday, and I haven't thought about it analytically in a long time. And so I really kind of had to like sit down. I'm like, dang, what do I look for?
Yeah.
Because every member of my team is completely different.
Hmm.
And it it may be some kind of bias, but I remember looking across at the beginning of a holiday in in the military is called a 96. But before you can go on your holiday, you have to do this massive formation outside the barracks where everyone stands up and you get counts and you're like, all right, you're done. And I remember looking across the formations in the barracks and seeing everyone was completely different. They all came from all across the
Mm.
country, different walks of life. You had gamer dudes, the Texans with their cowboy hats. You had the Mexican guys with the tall socks, or wherever.
Yeah.
It was Southern California. So and but in 4 days' time, they were all going to be back in uniform, and for the most part, they worked really well together. But you
Yeah.
wouldn't catch these guys together anywhere else. And I think subconsciously, I wanted to recreate that concept in my team, meaning there is no mold, I think, other than belief. And we have like the core values of the team, which is at every opportunity that you have to do the right thing, you pick the right way, not the easy way. And I think we mostly look for people who believe in the process and believe in what we're doing is the correct direction. Because if someone's an introvert or an extrovert or assertive or passive, that stuff is just trimmings. It's the icing on the cake. We can work with any individual who is maybe more shy or maybe more assertive or has different tastes or had different tendencies. We can work around all of that stuff. But at the very core, you have to believe in what we're doing. And
Yeah.
it boils down to you work harder than your competition, and you have to believe in turning yourself into a professional that's at the top of the food chain. And if you're going through the motions, we've had people come through here that were really talented, like some of the most talented persons. They're great at generating business, but they didn't work out
Mm.
because they didn't really believe in what we were doing. And it erodes away at the culture, and it makes it harder to justify some of the stuff that we do if not everyone's on board. So I think that's the number one thing, is like you got to be about the life to want to be here.
Absolutely. Share a little bit about, you demand greatness from your team, right? And so you demand greatness from yourself first,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? reaching your potential. And so you look for team members who have that same attribute. Talk a little bit about
Hmm.
to our audience who are the team members
Yeah.
now. How, as a team member, can you become a great team member and have the right mindset so that that leader can mentor you and instill those values, and you can grow
Hmm.
with the leadership that they're providing to you?
I would say for individuals that are looking to get mentored, kind of what you were, bringing in, or someone who wants to go be a member of the team, the first thing that I think you need to do is you need to really, really open your mind. So on your first day of training, when you walk in and you sit down to go over whatever material your instructor is going to go over, you have to prepare yourself to take in this new information. And you have to maybe get a little bit more excited about it, and be like, all right, I'm going to learn this stuff and I'm going to learn it because it's important. And you show that, that really healthy dose of humility when you go into your training, so
Yeah.
that when someone's running you through hey, this, and this, and here's why, we've given you the task, we've given you the justification, and it's never it's just how we do it. There's always if you do it this way, it'll work out mostly. If you do it the other way, you're asking for problems.
Hmm.
You have to be ready to accept all of that new information and then put it to work. And you have to, I would say, shape your mind to focus on the task at hand. I think that a big obstacle that people are faced in the workplace is distraction. They're not
Yeah.
thinking about reaching any kind of pinnacle, right? Because you said we expect, let's say, greatness. I would say we more expect the commitment. We expect maximum effort. And because
Yeah.
we don't have production requirements on the team. I there's no one here that's like, you have to sell X amount of houses every year. I have to be able to look at what you're doing and say, okay, yeah, you're putting out. And if you're doing what you're doing, the sales come with the effort. But if you're
Yeah.
focused more on the effort than you are on the sale, then this journey is going to go way faster and way more successful than what you would think. So I would say, for someone who's looking to aspire to, climb the ladder and become, I would say, more successful, it's first you have to be humble and you have to realize where you are, and you have
Yeah.
to realize that where you are is not where you want to be. And then if someone who you, and then you have to find someone that you trust to teach you, right? And that's where
That's right.
kind of that two-way street comes with the team, where I'm not going to expect them to do anything that I don't do or I haven't already done to near perfection myself. And that's the buy-in, where it's like, all right, this is what happened when I was a young agent. I made all of these mistakes. I'm giving you the answers to the test. I'm telling you what happened to me. And I have no problem putting myself on blast and saying, hey, I made this terrible mistake. Please don't
Yeah.
do this. Um, and I think that helps, but mostly you gotta really, is if it takes you looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I'm going to go into work today and I don't know everything. And my logic with zero experience doesn't matter all that much. I need to,
Mm.
like, open the mind and allow myself to be led through a new concept, and allow that concept to work. And if I have issues with it later, then we can start tweaking. But I think the open mindedness and the humility is a huge one.
Yeah, that's absolutely great advice. So, for those of you entering the workforce or starting this new career, these are great words of wisdom. Trust the process,
Yeah.
maximum effort, commit to what the leadership is asking you to do, and really, yeah, humility. There can't be too much said about just coming in and being a humble person and
Yeah.
being willing to join the team. Well, I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to learning some more lessons from you, but first, let's hear a message from our sponsor, Sphere Rocket.
Business owners and entrepreneurs will place a proven executive assistant VA for just $4 to $8 an hour, and if they don't perform, you don't pay. Imagine freeing up 20 plus hours a week by someone handling your most time consuming tasks like admin work, managing emails, scheduling meetings, and so much more. This one hire could transform your productivity and give you back the time you need to focus on growing your business. At Sphere Rocket VA, we make this possible in as little as 7 days. We'll place a proven executive assistant VA in your business for just $4 to $8 an hour, and your VA will take over day-to-day administrative tasks, help manage your email and calendar, follow up with past clients, giving you back 20 plus hours a week so you can increase your sales and even enjoy more personal time. And here's the best part. If they don't give you back 20 plus hours a week in the first month, you don't pay Sphere Rocket a dime. We've done this for thousands of business owners, and now it's your turn to see the results. Click the link around this video to schedule a demo and discover how this one hire can completely change how you run your business. Remember, if within 45 days the VA doesn't perform, you don't pay.
All right, so we were just talking about how, when a leader speaking to team members and training them up, one part of that is sharing, hey, these are the mistakes that I made. I've taken the test, here are the answers to the test, trying to help them kind of fast track their progress. If you were to go back in time and talk to your former self on day one of hopping into real estate, what advice would you give?
I would say look at the bigger markets first, but make more personal associations within the community. And that advice would change if I was in a different community. But Elizabethtown is unique because it's small-ish and it's in Kentucky. So a lot of tools that are used in big markets like Los Angeles or New York, they're not really used here yet. We rely on like word of mouth and this personal network and who knows who. And so and for me, I was just taking everything that I could at the time, which worked out. But it took me a year and a half to understand how a CRM worked into this business, like fully, and embrace some of the newer tools. And it took me right around that same time to get comfortable putting myself out there to other local businesses or investors or people that could have really helped elevate my business. So I would say two things: really, don't be afraid to go make new friends, but also, lean into some of that modernization a little bit sooner, because it's going to help.
Yeah, that's great advice. Quite a few real estate agents get a bad rap about,
Yeah.
just focusing on getting their paycheck,
Hmm.
focusing on their KPIs rather than focusing on a great solution for the buyer or for the seller.
Yeah.
And especially in a smaller town like E-Town, like you just said, word of mouth and referrals are huge, right?
Hmm.
You have become known as somebody who really operates with integrity and putting the priorities of the homeowner first. Talk a
Yeah.
little bit about just your perspective on really leading with integrity.
So that kind of goes back to um, the first house that I bought. And it was a new construction here in Elizabethtown right after I got out of the Marine Corps. And I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know about earnest money. I didn't know about title. I didn't know who did who, what responsibility was for where. I didn't know how to apply for a home loan. I don't even think I got pre-approved before I started looking at houses.
Yeah.
And I was just like, VA home loan, we get the money from the VA, right? Which is not true. I was thinking, like, why don't I just call Veterans United because they do the VA home loans, right? Another terrible lie. And so I was really at the mercy of the realtor
Mm,
and the lender that the realtor referred me to. And working in the industry now in that same community and understanding some of the ways that I was taken care of as a client, it really, really opened my eyes to like that really could have gone bad. I didn't know what my house payment was going to be until the day before I closed when they send out the disclosures.
Yeah.
So the initial consult that I really wish I could have had on real estate 101 and lending, and payments in that finance talk from the lender, we really harp on here. That's a huge cornerstone of what we stand for as like team wide.
Mm,
Is we do initial consults. Everybody wants to get out to show the house right now. Everybody wants to sign the paperwork and get their buyer under contract, or get this buyer to be theirs forever, right away. And Zillow is a huge proponent of that. It just is, because
mhm.
the way that system is brought up, what it has done, and what really threw fuel on that fire was COVID. It compressed the real estate transaction where it's everything's bang, 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 bang. We don't live in that market anymore. So now what we're trying to do as a team is really stretch out the early stages so that
Mhm.
we can have one or two more extra conversations about where our clients are, because a lot of people still, they don't know how their client is feeling about a certain house or a certain
Right.
budget or price range or location. They said, I don't know, that's just what they said they wanted. And I'm like, did you ask why? So it all goes back to that first experience I had, where I really wish someone would have sat me down and talked to me a little bit about, okay, so here's where you're at. Do you know where you want to be? Because this offers you the most flexibility, this offers you the highest potential for ROI. So I pull from a lot of like how helpless I felt. And it was such a
Mm.
new experience for me because I'm a sergeant in the Marine Corps. Like, what are you talking about? I can do anything.
Yeah.
And now I'm like getting shown houses, and I'm like, God, I feel helpless. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I would not even venture to pretend to know what I'm doing. I know
Yeah.
so little about it that I can't fake it until I make it. And that was like the number one thing when I started doing this. I'm like, we're never going to do that. That is never going to, we're going to have, if it, and I tell the team all the time, if we get a great lead and you want to have one extra conversation with them so that you guys are on the same page and you know what they know and they know what you know, and they shrug you off and go somewhere else, I will not fault you for that.
Yeah.
I would much rather lose a deal than potentially push someone or have someone fall into a really, really bad situation. Because with how this market is going, with the home prices nationwide, and with kind of the financial crisis that the middle class is seeing, where we're seeing less and less money in people's savings accounts, more and more money on the credit cards, more money in vehicle loans, having a conversation about, hey, dude, you don't need to go spend that much. You're pre-approved for this much, but you don't have to. Here's a
Good point.
roadmap to staying within your means just a little bit more, and here's why. You want to go buy the house with land. That's fine. Maybe let's not go manufactured for the first time around. Maybe let's buy a starter home. We really harp on the starter home for first time home buyers instead of trying to jump to the forever home on the first purchase.
Yeah.
um, but that's a pitfall. I feel like some of the things that we do, when we say it out loud, people are like, oh, doesn't everybody do that? No. A freakishly low percentage of our peers in the industry do that stuff because it's just not been standard.
Yeah.
We're, especially in our market, we're still adapting to, modern times in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
So a lot of institutional stuff as to how the brokerages work and how the title companies work, that stuff is still slowly catching up. And I think that, but the home buyers and the market that's in our area, they're younger now,
Yeah.
and so now we're trying to bridge this gap. So that's, I would say, really something that I think we try to do is we try to decompress at least the initial stages of it, because and with that, like, we can close a VA home loan in 14 days,
Hmm.
like, which is that is 30 days faster than when I closed my VA home loan
Wow.
in like 2019.
Wow.
So we can move way faster because the initial stages we're gonna slow down.
Hmm.
We're gonna take our notes. We're gonna go slow because I don't want to miss anything. And I don't want you to maybe feel ashamed or embarrassed to share with us something that you want or don't want. And now we're trying to have to play Clue as to
Yeah.
how can we figure this out. So yeah.
Well, it's fantastic you're really setting that standard in the industry there. And, I can relate. I bought a home years ago and
Hmm.
my real estate agent did a fantastic job. And so
That's
this was
great.
more on me. But I
Yeah.
remember when I found out how much everything would cost every month,
Yeah.
right? Because you're like, oh,
Uh-huh.
it's the loan is going to be this
Hmm.
amount. And
Principal and
so,
interest.
yeah, every month it's going to be this. And then you start adding in the HOA. And then
Hmm.
you start outing, the utilities and the things, and then even the other expenses in your life, right, that are not
Hmm.
assisted at home. And I just remember being like, it's gonna be a little tighter than I had assumed. And you
Yeah.
know, financial pressure is so significant, right? And so
Yeah.
it's one thing to sell a home to somebody and make a great commission because, you sold like this home for this amount, XYZ. But just imagine the impact you're having on a family when
Yeah.
you guide them to a solution that is something that they can more easily afford, right? And so
Hmm.
then it's like, okay, there's not as much pressure. Then there can be investments in other aspects of your life. And
Hmm.
I would imagine that probably enables you to sleep at night a lot better, treating
Yeah.
folks and looking for their right fit rather than just your commission.
Yeah. It taking the approach that I've taken to real estate helps me sleep at night for that reason. And also when I said goodbye to the military, it was such a calling for me. And um being a chance to like be the service part was one of the main reasons why I wanted to go. I wanted to go do the right thing for the right people. And you know, the political landscape is what it is these days, but that was what I really believed when I was a younger adult.
Yeah.
And so saying goodbye to that mindset of like I'm part of something bigger than myself, and now having to kind of redefine that and redefine me, taking the approach that I've taken to real estate is a way to kind of make peace with that because it's not just about the consult and taking care of people when I interact with them. It's
Hmm.
also for the advocacy portion because we're the
Yeah.
negotiators. We
Good point.
literally are the agent for other people. The two things that I always tell people that we lead with is education and advocacy. We do not gatekeep the information from the consumer. If they want to
Hmm.
know the how the sausage is made, dude, we'll open that kimono all day long. And the other side, though, is that if you're working with us, you're one of our people. Your success, a successful scenario for you, that is at the very top of our priority list.
Yeah.
We will stand on whatever it is you need from us. So whether it's negotiating a purchase price, closing costs, repairs, we're not thinking of things in the frame of, well, ooh, I don't want the deal to fall through. That's a very common phrase you hear is like, we don't want to hurt the transaction. We don't want to hurt the deal.
Yeah.
Dude, we do not care. Like we care because we want you to get a house. We do
Yeah.
not, we will terminate 10 out of 10 deals if that's what it takes because all of us, to a person on the team, even in the ones in training,
Hmm.
they really, really believe that this is a calling for them the to put the needs of somebody else above their own. And that's something that's I think really special and remarkable. It gives me real fulfillment. And part of that too is like I wanted to start my own company because I didn't leave the military so I could be close to my daughter and just work a 9 to 5 job,
Yeah.
and see her on nights and weekends. I didn't want that. I wanted to give her something more, and I wanted to give her kind of something that she could be proud of as she was growing up that would set an example for her chase her own happiness and fulfillment. And so finding a business that I could grow with people that I love and trust and care about, um, I think that's extremely special for me.
That's fantastic. Just a couple more questions for you. One is, a lot of times we like to talk about our successes, right?
Yeah.
Talk about, oh, I've accomplished this and I've done this and I started a company and I've grown a company and I've built a team and XYZ. But typically when it comes to learning lessons, those seem
Hmm.
to come from our failures. You can take this to whether it's your personal life, whether it's the
Hmm.
military, whether it's the real estate business. Take me through a moment where at the time it felt like a failure, and maybe it
Hmm.
legitimately was, but it resulted in teaching you one of the most important lessons you've learned so far.
This is going to be an extremely heavy answer, and I know that it's better to keep it concise, but I couldn't think of any other better example than this.
Hmm.
My one of the biggest things that felt like a real failure in my life, it was my marriage.
Hmm.
Um, and it has at face value, it has nothing to do with real estate. But when my marriage ended, I felt like a huge failure. I
Hmm.
felt like I had said goodbye to the only thing I was ever good at in the military, and
Hmm.
the only woman that I'd ever really loved at the time,
Hmm.
and the only woman that had loved me. And I was really, really, really fighting with my own self-worth after that. And it took years to reflect, but I looked back on it and I was like, you happiness is a choice. And that marriage that ended in a dumpster fire really, really set the table for the standards that I need to hold for myself. Because, like, I think inside in my own personality, I was like, I just want her to be happy. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Um, I want to do right. I want to do good. Right. Right, boss.
Hmm.
And I realized that I needed to look inward and realize that I can't fix everything. I can't make everything better. And
Hmm.
even though, and I'm like distracting myself from my own problems by trying to fix everybody else's problems.
Yeah.
But this massive lesson that it taught me was to be more self-accountable for how I'm viewing myself around other people and where I'm getting my own self-worth. And
Hmm.
I don't think, and I try really hard to be the best dad that I can be. That's like my number one goal outside of doing good in this business space. I don't think I'd have the skills that I have without that failure, because it
Yeah.
taught me so much about really myself, like the stuff that I react to. It taught me about my own journey with PTSD and my trauma responses that date back to being a kid. And
Yeah.
so it's a heavy thing to kind of finish up on, but that was one of the biggest turning points of my life where I was like, wow, what a failure.
Hmm.
And I look back on it now and like, I wouldn't be able to lead the team the way I'm leading them now. I wouldn't be able to take care of clients the way that I'm taking care of them now. None of it without really that gut punch.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, it's a hidden blessing, really, when you have some catastrophic thing in your life happen. But then
Hmm.
when you do take the opportunity to self-evaluate and grow
Hmm.
from that,
Hmm.
right? It reveals a lot of things in your life that you can adjust. You can adjust your focus and really move forward and become a better person and a more impactful person to those around you than if that hadn't happened in the
Yeah.
first place. So
Hmm.
I really
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that with us. Last question for you, and it's a much easier one, which is for those listening, if you're in E-Town or if you're somewhere in the area and you're thinking about a great place to live, how can I find a home? What is the best way to get in touch with you and your teammates?
Just head to our website. We're also on Google. We're slowly climbing the rankings. If you look at compassandkeygroup.com, or Google Compass and Key Group, we'll pop right up, and you can just give us a call right there. That kind of goes to one of my direct lines, and we don't have an answering service. It goes right to a person. So give us a call or head to the website at compassandkeygroup.com.
Fantastic. And so for those of you listening, obviously based on what Austin shared today, if you're working with him, you can definitely be comforted that you have somebody working for you and your interests rather than a paycheck. Austin, I really appreciate all you're doing and inspired by your mission and leading with integrity. Thank you for joining me today on the Leverage Podcast.
Thanks for having me.